Welcome to the Low Carb MD podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope.
As we have always said, we're bringing you medical information and cutting-edge science, but none of this is medical advice. Please seek out input from your own doctor.
Hello and welcome back to the Low Carb MD podcast. Here we go again, Tro. We got a real person who has been through some battles, man.
Absolutely. These are my favorite sort of types of episodes where we get to talk to people who have been on the journey, who've struggled, who have sort of faced their health issues head on. And when they share those stories, it's just always so powerful. So I'm always excited for these.
Yeah, Scott's like half the man he used to be, right? Scott, welcome. Scott King, it's so great to have you. You've inspired a lot of us along the way. We've seen your posts and it's like, man, this is pretty awesome. It's amazing what you've accomplished. So tell us how you came to be who you are. Like, where did you get to that point where you go, okay, I got to do something and make some changes? Because that's the hardest step for most people, is trying to figure out, okay, I'm in a bad situation. What do I got to do to fix this?
Yeah. So I probably about 15 years ago had gastric bypass, and like so many people, gained all my weight back. And because gastric bypass was the only solution that's ever worked, and I say that jokingly because I'm trying to have another one, I tried to get another gastric, and insurance denied it. And I just kind of chalked it up to, this is it. I'm just going to kind of phase off, and I just hope I pass away quickly and my daughters don't have to see me wither away. And during that time, I've been listening to Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew, and they kept having this Vinny Tortorich guy on the podcast. And it sounded like keto. And I just already knew keto is not going to work because I'm not the type of person that can, I don't even know to.
Shoot, we lost him,
Did we
Tro.
lose him?
We'll pause it for a second.
Jack, just edit that out. Maybe we'll start again.
Oh, let's
Just
see. Attendees.
Yeah, just while we're getting started with our guest, before we get started with our guest, maybe Brian and I can give people some education on what gastric bypass is. There's basically 3 or 4 or 5 types of bariatric surgeries, 3 of which have been very popular. There's gastric banding, which is called a lap band, and it's the most common. Previously was the most common bariatric surgery done. Now, today, after 1 million lap bands put in worldwide, the most common lap band procedure is lap band removal. The second most common procedure is the Roux-en-Y, which has been done for about 20 years, where they where they bypass most of your gut. And so your body doesn't absorb all those nutrients. You lose weight, but there's lifelong nutritional issues. And then the most common one done nowadays is a gastric sleeve, where they're cutting a big portion of your stomach, so to give you a sense of fullness at a much sooner time. Now, it's important to note that the side effects of surgery can be lifelong vitamin issues, developing other addictions like alcohol use or maybe going into a depression. There's high suicide rates that do occur. But overall, if the BMI particularly is over 40 or 45, it could add years to your life if you don't get some of these issues. But Mr. King, we'll welcome you back. We don't know what happened there, but here we are. So start us at the beginning of the story. You said you had a gastric bypass. I wonder if you could take us before even that point. Yeah. So what led you to the gastric bypass?
Yeah, let's go all the way back, Scott, to like as a kid. Was weight an issue for you growing up, or did that happen later in life, or what? Like, how do we get to the first gastric bypass?
Yeah, weight has always been an issue for me. It's just been a struggle from as long as I can remember. I was probably the youngest person on Weight Watchers, unsuccessfully too. But yeah, I was heavy enough to where when I wrestled my freshman year, I actually had to lose 8 pounds to meet the maximum required heavyweight. And I want to say I had to get down to 255 13, 14 years old. And then I, go through high school playing sports, and then I started getting injured and couldn't play sports anymore, and then started putting on the weight. And then after high school, just the weight just kept coming on and kept coming and just got out of control. Just eating trash food. So yeah, there's never been a point in my life where weight has not been an issue. I think at 13 years old, I was like 6'1", 240, 250 pounds. I've been the size of a man for a long time. But yeah, so it just, my weight kept getting worse and worse and worse. Nothing was ever solving it. And as a last ditch, I did end up having a gastric bypass. Don't remember the exact year, but let's just say I was 6 or something like that. And I actually was so heavy, I had to go to a specialist. Most doctors couldn't take me on. And I, for the most part, lost a decent amount of weight, but it quickly came back. It seemed like once I didn't plateau long. I just kind of got my bottom and then slowly started creeping. And I would say for a couple of years, I maintained 320-ish pounds. But then, it just, this life happened. I moved to Texas, and Texas has a lot of good food, and just kept putting on more weight. Then
wait, can I stop you? I'm sorry. I often want to get to the heart of it. So you bypassed a lot. You said Texas got a lot of good food, but there's a lot of good food everywhere.
right.
So something was happening where you found yourself gaining weight after 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah. It just seemed like nothing. I didn't have an answer. I was able to eat more. I was making poor choices on what I did eat. So
let's come back. They cut your stomach to the size of a pea or whatever, and somehow over time, okay, your behavior changed. You lost weight. Somehow over time, something didn't change.
right.
And so what was that something in your opinion?
My eating habits. The gastric was just at the time a foolproof solution, but I never changed the mental aspect of it. I did have to have the psych evaluation beforehand, but I just knew what to say to get it done. I really didn't know the proper eating habits that I needed to have, so I was able to start gaming the system, basically, I'd say, and that was certain things I was able to consume and just that I could tolerate better. And I would just eat those to excess, and unfortunately, a lot of it was processed in high carb foods.
Did they ever talk to you, like any education after the surgery or follow-up nutritionists and anything like that?
After the surgery, no. It was like kind of once I got all the check marks taken care of pre-surgery. Once I got the surgery, I was good and off to the races. Maybe like a couple pre-op follow-ups type thing, just make sure I was healing okay. But no education-wise.
Brian, it's not like we've seen that play out in recent things where, people are just promoting surgery and ignoring mental health. It's not like we've seen that before. So you said,
and just to jump intro, the other thing was, Prozac got a name, right? Because the suicide rates were going up like crazy because they would say, here, take this pill, you'll be fine. Okay, no follow up. Like then they realized you got to follow these people because if people are really depressed, they don't think about killing themselves. And then once they start coming out of it, it's when they get the energy to say, you know what, maybe I'm done with this life. Both gastric bypass, knowing what we know about the increased, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, spousal abuse or divorces and depression, anxiety, suicide, it's like that would be something where you go, hey, we're going to follow you. Here's what to expect, what's coming for you, because if your drug of choice was cookies, now all of a sudden you can't have cookies anymore and you look for that next drug of choice. And this is what Tro and I got ridiculed for talking about, to say, how could you possibly say that? Where it's true. We see it in clinical practice. We're actual doctors that see this. So how about for you, like mental health stuff, when you started losing weight, did you feel like excited and happy, or were you not? Like, where were you at?
Actually, before I get to that, I do want to mention on my wife's side, she had an aunt that had the gastric bypass, and she developed, she became an alcoholic after a gastric bypass, and she literally drank herself to death. She's passed away several years ago, exactly for what she said. But yes, I'm sorry. So yeah, going back to my gastric bypass, I mean, I was excited because I was losing weight, but it was a lot of weird mental stuff. Like I never thought I was a stressful eater or anything like that. And I remember, for example, I had a really bad day at work, and I drove to Wiener Schnitzel and I was in the drive-through, and I was like, what am I even doing here? I can't even get anything. It was just like a reflex. And so I was understanding that, wow, there is a lot of psychological that plays part of it. It's just not what you consume. There is a mental aspect of it, which unfortunately I never addressed. So hence all the weight coming back on.
So I wanna talk about that a little bit more. So now you had this, gastric, sleeve. Was it the first one, or
I believe it was the Roux-en-Y.
you had a Roux-en-Y? Okay, so you had a Roux-en-Y, and which is, it requires lifelong vitamins. It requires, it's a big deal, and you find you're gaining weight again. And I just, you said the way you described it now is, I'm in Texas. There's a lot of good food in Texas. And then when I sort of pressed you on it, you said, well, I didn't change my habits. I didn't have to make the best choices, right?
Mhm.
Let's go back to that moment, right? What did you wish you knew? So, and you were so sort of desperate, you're thinking about getting a new gastric bypass, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you, like, what's going on in your mind? Who's to blame here? Whose fault is it? Like they cut your they cut your stomach, right? So what's
Yeah,
going on here,
I'm very self-deprecating, so it's always my fault. And I knew that I knew that I ruined my stomach. That's what my thinking was, is I ruined it. I stretched it out. That's why I need a new gastric bypass, because I screwed it up. And then I need it again, because this time now I know better, and I'll fix it, and I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. So yeah, slowly put it on myself, that I just completely put my stomach back to the point of what it was before, and thought that the new gastric bypass would give me a new start, and I'd be able to go from there with better knowledge, if that makes any sense.
Got it. Okay. So I found this, and maybe Brian, you can tell me, here I am talking too much again. I found that most people put a lot of self-blame, right? There's a lot of self-blame, but I liken it to, like, imagine there's something wrong with your car and you reach out for help, and they're like, there's something wrong. I got a gauge, tire that says it's flat, the meter's off, or I got a flat, and you call a car company and they say, well, listen, you need to pump more air in your tire than you let out. And you're just not a great driver. It's probably your genes. Your whole family can't drive. That's probably what the cause is, right? And you're like, well, wait a second. Maybe they're right. Maybe it is my fault. It is my fault. I'm the one driving bad again. I'm the one driving bad again. And what happens is, they sell you some, fix a flat, but you're not actually addressing the problem. And the self-blame, I don't think it's helpful. If you could have gone back, it sounds like you said, I'm self-deprecating, self-blame. You think that self-blame, like, it sounds like you were holding yourself accountable, right? Do you think it helped you in those times?
I held myself accountable, but there was not necessarily an action behind that to take further steps or measures. It was just it was an easy my fault, and then that's it. There's no back.
So all you did was blame yourself, and it didn't result in a change of anything.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's probably even more harmful than just being. It's not ownership. It's like worse than ownership, because it's all the negatives of ownership and none of the positives.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, didn't think about that.
So what happens next, man? I'm curious.
I keep trying to have gastric bypass again, and keep bugging the insurance, trying to get appeals, and I keep getting denied. That's where we go to the Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew show, because I keep hearing about Vinnie Tortorich, and I don't know what macros are. Still really don't know what macros are, but I likened it to keto. And I just knew that it wasn't going to work for me because there's a lot of figuring out. And then I find out that it's really just a PDF of don't eat this and you can have that. And I'm married long enough. I'm used to being told what to do, and I can follow that kind of rule. And it works for me. So as a last ditch effort, I was kind of exploring it and looking at it. And what was the final step for me to do something about it? Vinny likes me to tell this story is we were on the front porch or front lawn, and my 2.5-year-old daughter ran for the street, and I couldn't even get out of the chair to get her from going in the road. Thank God nothing happened. It's not a busy street. I was able to get her, but it weighed on me heavily that my health was so horrible that I could not even do the basic function of protecting my family in something so as minor as that. So I just figured, let's give this a try. And I started eating properly, but it was kind of weird because I had no scales. My doctor had no scale that could weigh me. So I didn't know if I was losing weight or not. I just was just hoping I was losing weight. Clothes kind of felt looser, but I didn't know if that was a placebo effect or whatever. And I would say a few months down the road, several months down the road, it started reading me. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, it's not showing an error anymore. So this has got to be something. And then I was actually starting to see, wow, there's actually success here. I'm losing weight. I'm definitely, I think it was not till like a year later, we were at a park. My wife did one of those collages, side-by-side deals of me the year before and me now. And I had no idea that there was a difference, but there was a significant difference. And that from then on is kind of like stoked the fire. It got me super excited and wanted to make something of this.
Yeah, and your journey is amazing. So a year later, I just talked to a patient right before we came on, and she said, you know what? She goes, being with you, this is where I would have given up. I'm not seeing results right now, and I'm not losing weight consistently. And I was like, this is where I just say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. But she goes, I know, because I know from your other patients and what's happened with them that I'm going to keep going. And that's why a year, when you're starting and you're over 500 pounds and you go, okay, you're not going to lose this weight in a week. We all want to say, okay, I'm going to lose 20 pounds this week. And that's what happens. But that is such a huge point of your story. Is like, when you have a long way to go, it's like, some people, I have a lady that just came to me, she goes, I want to lose 8 pounds. It's like, oh my gosh, 8 pounds. Like, for us, that's a joke, right? But for her, it's really serious. And this is where she wants to be. And she feels better at a certain weight. But how do you do it when you have so far to go? You're starting a journey and all your friends are looking at like, look, dude, this is never going to happen.
That's what worked for me really well is I would just set one tiny goal at a time, because looking at the big picture, I was wanting to give up instantly because you can't see that far down the road. So my first thing was, I want to see the scale read something, not an error. And then the next thing was, I want to see a 3 in front of my weight instead of a 4 in front of my weight. And then you keep setting these small little goals, and it keeps you focused, your eyes on the prize. That cheesy saying, but and before you know it, you add a whole bunch of little tiny goals together. It turns into something significant. People, I've had a lot of nice people I've met through this journey, and I'll be honest, I'm probably more shocked than anybody else that this works and that I'm here and this is where I'm at right now in my life, because it just still in my head doesn't calculate, doesn't comprehend,
So I want to hear what has changed. So, I have a suspicion that most of obesity can be solved with 5 things: hunger, cravings, feelings of deprivation, managing social situations when it comes to food, vacations, holidays, etc., business meetings, and managing emotions and coping. My belief is if you do those 5 things, there's not an obesity epidemic. So what changed for you, right?
Uh-huh.
What changed for you that all of a sudden now you're losing weight?
Right off the bat, the lack of deprivation. It's hard to, like with Weight Watchers or any other diet I've done in the past, it's hard to be hungry all the time. It's hard to starve yourself. It's hard to, not eat or not eat something you like or whatever. And to do that consistently all the time, to me, was just not a reality. And the fact that with NSNG, if I'm hungry, just eat the right thing. Don't eat till I'm stuffed, sick, so full. Just eat till satiated. See it as a means to fuel. Not everything doesn't have to be a treat. You're not constantly eating like it's a party. And it took a few weeks, maybe a month, for me to have my head wrap around it all, because it seems so foreign to somebody that is as heavy as I was. But it's really simple. And people think I'm dumb when I say it. It really is simple to eat this way. This is what my options are. Pick one, eat it till it's satiated, and you're done. And that, I've never felt deprived of anything since doing that. And I think, like you hit on, is the key that I've had success and continue to do it. And it's not a struggle in the sense of the monotony of it, the same old, same old, same old. I enjoy the simplicity. It's honestly freedom. It's honestly freedom in eating. That I'm not like a slave to it anymore. It's just, I see it for what it is now.
So if you could re-describe it in those 5 things. So hunger, cravings, feelings of deprivation, social situations, emotions, and coping, and mental health. Which one of those was hit for you by this way of eating?
The deprivation part of it, or the lack thereof, the deprivation.
Yeah, not deprived. Yeah.
I mean, and the funny thing is as I was losing weight, I'd be at work firing up in the microwave a burger patty or something like that, and people are like, "I'm happy for you. You're losing weight. This is so unhealthy. You're going to get so sick. You're going to have so many problems." And what's funny is every single person that said that to me, I'm now smaller than and healthier than, and
isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? When you were 500 pounds, they're not saying anything. You're eating donuts and cake, and they don't care. But then you say, "I'm going to eat some meat," and they go, "Oh my gosh, you're crazy. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
As you're losing 150 pounds, 200 pounds, and that's what's so remarkable. And I hear that all the time, and especially the hard thing is someone like you go into your doctors and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what are you eating?" "No, that's dangerous." "Well, I've lost 150 pounds, doctor." And they go, "No, that's crazy." And the other irony of all this stuff is Vinny Torchurch, right? He's not an MD.
No.
He understands physiology. He understands human nature. He understands so much stuff. And he's helped way more people than any of us around have done, right? Because he stood up and said, "Wait a minute, you guys are all wrong." And like, "You know better than the AMA and all these other groups out there." "Yeah, I do." Because I see what's happening to my clients.
And it's funny you say that, because my mom was one of the ones worried about this way of eating. She's like, this is bad for you. You're going to get horrible blood pressure. You're going to get high cholesterol. So I have had so many physicals and blood panels done since doing this. And I went and saw my doctor one time. I hadn't seen her in a long time, and she saw my weight. She's like, "Oh wow, you had the gastric again. They approved you." I said, "No, I didn't." And I said, she's like, "Then what'd you do?" I said, "I ate meat. I ate bacon. I ate this and this." And she's like, "Oh, don't do that." And I just said, "Is there anything on my labs that tell you I should switch anything?" And she's like, "No, I'll just continue to do what you're doing then." And it's just funny how it's like a natural reflex to just the old way of thinking, low fat, low calorie is the only solution.
And what was your support system like? Your wife, friends, like what was that like? How did people, were they encouraging you on, or what? How did that work?
For the most part, everybody was really encouraging me, because they saw how bad and how dire my situation was. And then, I ended up getting a huge cheerleading system out of it. And through the community, I've created a lot of really good close friends as well. And so many of them want to see success in me more than I do sometimes, it seems like. I've been very blessed and fortunate with the support system I have. Just a couple random, I wouldn't say naysayers, but still people not too sure about this way of eating, wondering if it'll be some underlying issue down the road. But I'm nearly 5 years in. I think I kind of proved the point.
Can you talk, which, just so you know, 5 years in is to maintain weight loss is less than 20% of people doing gastric bypass. So the average weight gain with a gastric bypass starts back at somewhere between 12 to 16 months. which is
Yeah.
exactly where we see with these new drugs that are used for weight loss. So to be able to lose weight and sustain it multi-year is just, it's a rarity. So all I can say is keep going.
Appreciate it. Absolutely. And what I do like about this lifestyle too is it's the simplicity of it. Before, when I would start putting on a little bit of weight, it was just like the head onto a crashing car type of situation. I felt like where I put on a little weight because I hadn't been training for anything over the last or year or whatever. Nothing horrible, but you're able to right the ship so easy. You realize with that simplicity, you realize, okay, I just need to do this and tweak this and I'm good. And the weight's already starting to come back off. So it's just, yeah, it's just the greatest thing I've ever found for my life and my well-being.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing in the psychological part of this. You know, I have a friend who's a multimillionaire. I said, what would you do if you lost all your money? What would you do? And he said, I'd make it back again. Like, I know what I have to do. And it's like, okay, you gained 20 pounds. Okay, I got to tweak this. I've been lax here. I've been lax here. I got to step up my workouts. Maybe I stop doing whatever, like snacks before I go to bed, whatever it is. But once we know what to do, the problem is when they go, you know, we hear it all the time, go, it's just genetic. That's what you're going to be. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. And that's the worst. I mean, I know Tro gets maybe a little bit heated when people say that because it's so frustrating to say there's nothing you can do. You got cancer, nothing we can do for you. Sorry, good luck. Right? We'll call hospice and that's it. Instead of saying, hey, here's our game plan. Here's what we're going to do. Right? We're going to hold your hand through this and we're going to be with you. And we're on this journey together.
Absolutely. And this is the only time when I started just creeping up a little bit that I didn't just chalk it up to, well, here's another failed weight loss. I was just like, no, simple. I know what I'm doing wrong. I identified it and it's done. And we're back on track. And so, it's nothing, it's something that's never happened previously. You know,
if you could go back to you before you got that gastric bypass, you know, and you're staring at that, you know, Scott, what are you telling him? Because remember, you were facing somebody who was saying, it's my fault. This is me. Right. And somebody who was blaming themselves, so desperate, he went and got surgery. Right. So if you're facing that person and you're like the guy in the street, you know, I feel like you're the evangelizer. What do you say to that guy? What do you say to old you? Who's going to be skeptical, who's not going to believe anything you're saying, who's going to say, you know, what are you trying to sell me? You know, what are you going to say to that person?
And this is why I try to get this out there to approach somebody like I was, is that there's another solution. It's easier than you think. There's an alternative. It's healthier. I've got all kinds of medical issues from that gastric bypass. You can avoid this all just by just making a few tweaks, just getting this out of your life, changing your mindset. That's the biggest thing. Just getting educated is the huge thing. If I just had, I told Vinny so many times, if I just had that education prior, that would have never been a consideration to have the surgery. It would have been just kind of like, if you just want to make it as so simple as comparing the two to each other, it just wouldn't win out. It would be the more difficult solution. So the NSNG, the low carb lifestyle, once educated, is to me the easiest solution. So I would just be, and I try to do it still, just be preaching that there's a better alternative to it. This is not the only solution or option you have.
And Scott, during this 5-year course, have you ever deviated, like went back to your old ways for any extended period of time?
No, I don't trust myself. So I don't tempt myself at all. The only thing I did, and that was trash and I got out of it, was I was drinking those zero carb energy drinks. And I kind of got to be a junkie on those, but I quickly got out of that and good. But I think what helps with this is to know who you are. And I am aware that I can't be trusted in certain things. So I don't tempt my fate. I don't have a little bit of a cake. I don't have a donut, because I've done that in the past. And, I have a donut and then, I'll be good right after this. And 3 months, 4 months, 6 months go by and I'm trying to figure what the heck just happened. And so.
So I want to stay right here. I want to stay right here because you just said what every person going into bariatric surgery needs to hear. Right? You just said, I don't trust myself. I was a junkie. Those were your words.
Yeah.
Right? I was a
Yep.
junkie. And so every single person, and Brian has talked about this again and again, we've talked about it. They need to understand what food addiction is. I mean, you just basically described it. You don't trust yourself when it comes to food, right? You don't trust because you know what the result is,
Yes.
right? And what that's called is food addiction. It has a word. And so what you've understood is, one, you cannot be hungry, not be deprived with low carb eating, right? And then two, you've understood there's other things besides the carbs that trigger you. Caffeine and sugar, sugar replacements can trigger you.
Mm-hmm.
And you've also discovered, three, that you're a food addict, correct? So these are so if I could go back to the first Scott, and this is what I've done my entire career, is tell people those three things.
It makes sense. I mean, like, you're not going to take a recovering alcoholic to a bar. It's you can't be in that situation.
This is a hugely important topic, right? Because some people, like if you tell them you can never have bread again, they lose their mind. They don't even start. Other people say, well, can I do it? And I think we all have to learn for ourselves and go, yeah, I know if I have chips and salsa, I'm gonna eat like all the chips and salsa. So I don't expose myself to chips and salsa because I know that's my weakness, right? So there's a lot of people who Tro and I have argued with over the years or have a different philosophy where they say, look, if you restrict people too much, they're going to lose their minds. But it's an individual thing. Like what you're doing is saying, look, once you have that realization and say, okay, if I eat one donut, I'm going to eat 10 donuts. But other people may have one donut every 6 months and that's not going to cause them to die, right? But other people have one donut and they can't stop. There's that addiction. It's like alcohol. Some people can't have one drink. So we have to realize that's the huge part of it. But I have some people who say, you know what? Don't tell me I can never have a donut again or pizza again. But maybe we do it with rosettes, right? We do a different type of pizza where you can have that pizza taste that you enjoy and you can do stuff that you enjoy. Or, you could do a health code ice cream or whatever. You can make your own ice cream. You can make your own dessert. You can make your own appetizer and bring it with you. So you don't have to eat the terrible stuff there and go, that's all there was.
Yeah.
So many people are learning like what works for them and what doesn't work. And for all of us, it's the same. We don't want to be the outcast and we can't do what everyone else is doing, and say, okay, everyone else is eating dinner, I'm going to sit here and stare at them. There's a lot of the social cues and social things we have to deal with. And, like Tro was saying, is like, how are you going to handle the holidays? How are you going to handle going to the football game? Right. Like, thinking ahead and planning ahead. And that's what's so awesome when people can do that. And for you, it's like, you're still around the good tasting food. You're still there in Texas, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Luckily, it's the land of the barbecue, so that helps out a lot too. But I've also learned I developed a knack for cooking. I'm a pretty good cook, so I also like to bring stuff. Let's say Thanksgiving, let's say dinner, bring something I can eat, and have people eat it and be like, oh wow, this is what you can eat. Yes, this is what I can eat. I told you I'm not deprived. And then just little things to kind of put that in their mind to make them maybe start, hey, maybe this might be for me. So I enjoy doing that too, so yeah, there's alternatives.
Can you talk about some of the foods that you struggled limiting sort of in a prior lifetime, and how do you navigate those things now? Brian mentioned pizza, for example.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing was like Mexican food. I can kill some super burritos and tacos and chips and salsa, like you said, and my family still loves it and is addicted to it. But how I navigate around it is I just go there and get the fajitas. There's nothing wrong with a bunch of grilled meat and veggies, and no beans, no rice, no tortillas, and you just focus on that. You're going to be full. You eat meat and veggies, you're not going to have the desire to load up on carbs after that. You got everything you need. there's always alternative. There's always a workaround to everything. You're not stuck in any environment really. So yeah, I would say that would be my biggest thing is what I used to eat at Mexican food has changed, but I still get the taste for it. So it's not a problem.
So how do you manage it if you want chips? What do? You just don't eat it?
I'll honestly, I like the salsa, so I'll just kind of maybe get the salsa on my own and spoon some salsa. No, it's close enough for me. I don't need the crunch. I don't need the chips.
So you just don't do it. Yeah. Do you do any sort of like, I don't know, there's like, fathead dough for a pizza, or I don't know, you can make chips, or are you just a steak and vegetable kind of guy?
I'm more of a steak and vegetable kind of guy. Sometimes I'll get like a hankering for a pizza or whatever, and I'll do like a fathead dough and make my own version of a pizza. And you know what? I'll make it. I'll be good for 6 months.
Hey, so, while we're talking on these things, just Anna Vocino, I had on Tro. You missed her, so I got some free sauce she just sent me. I'm really looking forward to that. So doing making pizza, having good, healthy, like nutritional stuff with it, right? Or making it with chicken. There's so many different ways. And before we leave the Mexican food, I had a new patient, Tro. He's gained a ton of weight. His family has a ton of Mexican restaurants that they run here. I go, oh my gosh, that's my kryptonite. We started talking. And we started talking about the different fats that are better. And he goes, he starts laughing. I go, what's so funny? He goes, what's funny is my family restaurant always used lard. That's the Mexican recipe for the beans and the meat. They cooked everything in that. And then when all the vegetable oil came out, he goes, we switched to vegetable oil. We all got fat after that, right? Eating the same stuff. He said, we all gained weight when we switched to vegetable oil. The lard, he goes, my dad's going to freak out because all of his stuff said no lard. We don't use lard. He put posters all over his place, and they all got sicker after that. It's amazing, isn't it?
It's so funny. It makes me laugh how stuck our brains are in the old way of thinking. I mean, it got forced down us for so long. We bought into it.
Bingo. And that happens again and again and again and again, and people will prey on that either knowingly or unknowingly. Will focus on things like surgeries when mental health maybe needs to be addressed. I mean, because surgeries are very, great way to make money when you can see that there was little follow through, and there's some serious side effects, nutritional side effects that you have to live with or lifelong. And
is it true, Tro?
I'm speaking double speak right now, if you can't tell. But
yeah, and
Brian can tell I'm speaking double speak. But
and is it true that the obesity recommendation now for kids and teenagers is like going for the surgery first before we talk about low carb or anything like that?
Correct. The recommendations now, if lifestyle does not work and the lifestyle recommended for generally healthy is not low carb, the dietary guidelines do not say that healthy Americans should try low carb. So right now, the recommendations are, if lifestyle, which is basically a low-fat diet, does not work, that you consider surgery or injectable drugs for adolescents, which is an embarrassment on our profession, in my opinion.
That's scary. That's not good.
And you're a perfect example. You do it, you lose some weight, then you gain back plus some down the road, and now you lost muscle mass, your metabolic rate screwed up, you're not as healthy as you used to be, now you don't have enough vitamins, and you start looking at, like when you said you're eating for fuel now, like to have good energy, it's amazing how much you've changed in that way. How about, what are the biggest things you've noticed with your weight loss or your journey? What have you learned about yourself, or what have you noticed mental health changes? Have you noticed like contentment changes, or what things do you appreciate more in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a lot more content. I just get more joy out of things. I'm able to participate in my life. For so long, I was just a spectator of life, and it sucked. I have 3 little girls, and there were so many things that I just couldn't physically do with them. Even with just kicking a ball around the yard. It's just moments like that. They're short, and it sucks to not be part of it while you're able to be part of it. And so the joy in my ability to interact with my kids is so much greater. Even with my parents, for example, there's joy there and contentment there, knowing that they don't have to worry about me because they were worried about me. And one thing that killed me before, so we were from California, we moved to Texas, and
like a lot of people,
just like everyone. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we're not a rarity. But my mom was leaving one time and she was just hysterical. Actually, every time she'd leave, she'd be hysterical. And it wasn't until this is hard, sorry. After I had lost weight, she told me that she would get so upset when she left because she thought it was gonna be the last time she didn't see me again.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, man. Yeah.
And to put that, because of my poor decisions, because of my poor lifestyle, to put that stress on a family member, my parents, that they don't think they're going to see their kid again because of the lifestyle he had, that's hard. That's a hard thing to deal with. And it crushed me.
And did your parents have guilt because of the way they raised you, maybe with more food centric and you know?
My mom brings it up sometimes, but it wasn't on them. I mean,
yeah.
You know,
hold on one sec. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's come back, right? And I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said yourself, right? Your entire life, you had ownership and self-blame, right?
Yeah.
Right. So accountability is not an issue. It's right. Accountability is not an issue. You may have not gotten the results you want, but you blamed yourself for a lifetime, and it led you nowhere.
Right.
Right. And what led you somewhere was, one, not wanting to let other people down, not wanting to let yourself down, and keep trying. Right. That's what led you somewhere.
Yeah.
But you got manipulated for how many years? By poor nutritional advice, poor surgical advice, poor medical advice. Nobody gave you what you needed. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not a big, I mean, maybe Brian doesn't like it when I do this, but I don't like to make people out to victims. In my mind, you're a victim.
Maybe I'm the same way. I don't like to make people victims. So maybe that's why I have a hard time recognizing myself as that or seeing myself as that. But I mean,
Brian, am I wrong here? Am I wrong? He's a victim. That's what am I wrong to say that?
Well, we're a victim because of the lack of knowledge, right? Because the parents think they're doing the best they can. They go, "Hey, you're a good kid. Let's get you a cookie. Let's reward you." And we kind of do that, And so I think it's one of those things where it's just bad advice all the way around. You're a victim in a way because you don't know any better. Had you have known better before, you've got yourself out of victimhood, I would say, by saying, "Hey, look, I have a responsibility in this, and I'm going to be able to do."
So many people profited off of his misery.
Oh, absolutely.
So many people.
Yeah.
Right? And even to this day, despite knowing, right, he has family members and who don't eat the same way or are questioning him, and there's something systematically wrong here, in my opinion.
Well, it's a problem because, again, when it doesn't work, you think of yourself as weak and that it's the same thing. Like, I just met with a patient and she went off to visit a friend and they ate bad for a while and she felt really bad about herself, And I said, look, it happens. I go, are you a bad person because you had a cookie? Does that make you a bad person? Is that what defines you as an individual? Like, you were with everyone, was everyone else you're eating cookies with bad people? No, it's just that you guys made choices and now you have the ramifications. Your mood's down a little bit as a result. Your joints hurt a little bit. You're a little disappointed in yourself, but okay, today's a new day, right? So sometimes we get so stuck in that self-pity because you could have sat there in that self-pity and go, okay, this is my life. I'm never going to be able to help my kid when she's running towards the street, and go, this is my lot in life. And that's the problem. That's when we become victims, when we realize, when we feel like we can't do anything to get out of our situation. If we're in a bad marriage or we're in a bad job, sooner or later you go, okay, it's not worth it anymore. We're either going to work on this or I got to find something else to do, right? That's what I had to do career-wise. So, you start looking and going, okay, is it worth it? Like, it's going to be some pain, but in the long run, is it worth it? Yes, because you can't work 18-hour days and be stressed out all day. Or I can't sit here and think I'm going to drink my Slurpee all day and not be able to help my kid when they need me, or I'm not going to be around. They're going to have to grow up without a dad. And then the judgment that comes on obese people is like, he died of a heart attack, but he was obese. Like, oh yeah, he got lung cancer, but he was a smoker, right? It's like you blame it on them, like these things that sometimes just happen to people. And so, it's one of those things where you go, okay, I'm taking control of my life again, and I'm going to take these steps. And you could have, lost 50 pounds and go, okay, it's not worth it. It's too hard. I'm not doing this. But you kept going. And that's the thing about you. That's why we're here talking to you, is because how do you keep going when like people don't believe in you, or when you failed so many times before? And also the problem with the system is, I'll use Weight Watchers as an example. Their failure rate's dramatic. And all these people think that, oh, it worked for a while and then it didn't work anymore. So it's my problem. I'm weak. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Right?
And the surgeon made hundreds of thousands. The hospital made 100,000. So the people victimizing people are getting paid.
And if they really cared, they go, okay, after surgery, here's what we're going to do. You have someone like Rob Sivas, right? He's going to say, here's what you got to do before surgery. Here's what you're going to do after surgery. Here's what you're going to expect. When they just say, here you go, here's your new pilot's license, good luck, and they don't teach you how to fly the plane, you're going to crash and burn. That's exactly what they're expecting from people. Like, you don't have medical knowledge. So you get this surgery, you don't know what's happening with your body. And then you figure out, like, because I'm addicted, oh, if I stretch my stomach out a little, I could eat a little more of this cookie. If I stretch it out a little bit more, then all of a sudden you're back in the same boat again.
But he's not even thinking like that.
They just bought a new yacht, and then you're still struggling, right?
Yeah, here we are yapping again, Scott, and this is what,
it's valid. It's a valid point.
Yeah. So Scott, give us the tips that you wish, you gave us the tips you wish you knew sort of back then, but for somebody who's 2-3 years in, still maintaining, still going, what are the things what are the mantras you hold now? What do you pay attention to now? What are the tips you wish you knew for now? And I guess lastly, you can close us out with, if somebody's inspired and wants to message you or something, how do they contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the first question now to just kind of, a few years in, I just keep going. Like I said earlier, the big thing was just know who you are and know what your trigger points are. Stay away from those. Self-identify. But one thing I do is just kind of set goals. Keep making goals. Try not to get too complacent. My goal last year, whatever, was to do the bicycle portion of a half iron relay. I did that, and then I realized, wow, that kind of sucked. I like not training for a little bit, and I got lazy, and I realized, I've become goal oriented, back to that self-awareness. So set small goals. I mean, it could be nothing. It could be just go for a walk daily. It can do a 5K, or just set a grand goal, and just have like an eye on the prize attitude. Set something new, do something different, and it at least keeps me motivated and keeps me wanting to keep going. And also, as much as I'm not a big fan of social media, I use it to paint myself into a corner. I'll decide of a goal, and I'll make these statements, and I'll throw it out there because I don't want to look like an idiot and not do it. So, I do that sort of thing.
So leverage you. If you're self-accountable, make it know who you are, so you know what you're up against. Know if you have food addiction. Know if you have other issues that needs to be addressed. And then once you understand who you are, make it fun and enjoyable, and put all that accountability that you did live through a lifetime, put that to use.
Right. And what I also like to do too is what keeps me really motivated is, I know hopelessness more than anybody. I know that feeling. And I felt like there wasn't a lot of people that could sympathize with me prior. So that's why I try to make a presence, is to let people know, dude, I know what it's like. There's an alternative here. This is not the end of your story. You could change. That's solely why I do this, is to let people know that now is the time.
Yeah, 100%. No need to delay. I'm with you. And how do people find you if they, besides coming to our Tuesday group?
I try to do all social media more heavily on Instagram and Twitter, with the hashtag of less of me with NSNG. I will throw it out there if anyone wants to follow. I, as of this week, made the declaration that I'm shooting to do the Texas Ironman in 2025, which I thought of what would be the stupidest idea I can come up with, and I think I nailed it. I'm full. I'm all in. I think that this goal and this accomplishment can bring to light this lifestyle, and I really just want to do it to change people's lives, to just inspire other people to make that change.
Amen.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. Thank you so
stuff.
much for coming.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Scott. Hey, best of luck to you. Keep up the good work. It's the swimming part that's the scary part, man, the triathlon.
Yeah, open water swims are not fun. There's sharks in every body of water to me.
Be careful for the sharks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and social media too. Be careful of the sharks.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Hey guys, thanks so much. Everyone, Patreon supporters, thanks for joining us. This is really important stuff. This is why we do the podcast, to hear these stories, these testimonies, and what Scott's doing to inspire us all. And some of us only have 20 pounds to lose, some of us have 320 pounds. So it's just like saying, okay, let me just take it a step at a time and not be, rushing to, you got to plant those seeds sometimes, and it takes a long time. These good habits, you don't see the fruit for a long time, so you got to be patient. You can't plant a tree and get fruit tomorrow. It takes time. So
not only that, can I just say one last thing? Not only does it take time, but you can never stop watering that tree, otherwise it's going to die.
Absolutely.
Right? None of us can flick a switch and not be hungry, right? We can't turn it off. It's always going to be with us. So we got to figure out a way to live with that, manage it, and it sounds like, Scott, that's exactly what you've done. So I'm so grateful for you both. I always say this, Brian, I'm always lucky to have, met you and worked with you. Scott, it's such a freaking amazing story. Oh, Jack, edit that out. Such an amazing story. Very inspiring.
I appreciate you all.